Hey, how's it going? My name's Dan, and today I want to break down a brand new track that I have here called Beat of My Heart. I worked on this track with a really talented EDM singer named Murphy. You can find them here. They've done a bunch of awesome electronic collabs all over the electronic genre, from future bass to house to more chill kind of stuff, and I'm really excited to have this track out there. First, I want to start out by showing you a little bit of the demo that I sent over. When I'm working with a singer, I always start out by sending over a bunch of little sketch ideas just to understand what kind of sound palette that they want to go for, and so that I'm not locking them down to like one particular sound. I always want to provide some sort of variety when I'm doing collabs. And the one we both agreed on is this, and here it is in its super rough basic form. So after I sent that over, Murphy sent me back some sketch vocals just as an idea of like, does this work? Is this like a cool direction to go into? And here it's that same demo, but with some scratch vocals on top of it. So that's what the demo sounded like, and we were both able to see the potential in that sound. So then it was just a matter of getting the real takes over to me and me finishing the production. So after sending these things back and forth, we agreed upon this sound, and then it was just time to get the full takes over to me and for me to get working on the actual production of the track. So now let's go through each part of the track and break it down for you.
Don't think about it, feel the rhythm, baby. Don't get your tongue tied in a knot, no, baby. Just feel the beat in my heart. That boy makes my heart go ba 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 na, ba 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 na, ba 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 na, ba 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 na, ba 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 na, ba 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 na, ba 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 na.
So I guess we should start breaking this track down with the vocals. So let's hear a little bit of this going into the drop. So generally with the vocals in this track, we start in the verses, really dry, really close kind of sound, really mono as well. But then when we get closer to the drop, we have a vocal fill, and that's super stereo. And then in the drop, it's super stereo. So that's kind of my strategy on how to use the vocals in the dynamics of the song. It's kind of like a push and pull where we change the amount of effects going on. We add and take away layers, all that kind of stuff. So here's the example of that going from the verse to the chorus. So listen how the vocals are just one mono track and then it opens up.
They all know he making me take it slow. That boy makes my heart go ba 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 da, ba 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 da.
Same thing happens going from the first chorus to the second verse.
Just feel the beat of my heart. Come closer, baby, wanna feel you.
You can hear all that reverb settle down and then the vocals dry again.
Just feel the beat of my heart. That boy makes my heart go ba 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 da, ba 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 da, ba 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 da, ba 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 da, ba 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 da.
So let's break that down. So leading into the drop, I have this little vocal fill here. And I have these split into the stereo field to like open the track up before the drop comes in.
That boy makes my heart go
And then here's the main vocals.
ba 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 da, ba 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 da.
And if we look at what's in here, we just have like some compression and some EQ. And then we have the main vocals, which it's a layer of 3 different takes, 1 down in the center and 2 split wide.
Don't think about it, feel the rhythm, baby. Just
So all throughout, we have some little delay sends kind of going on like this.
baby.
I had this little vocal impact sound, adding some extra texture. And then throughout the second drop, we also have this little vocal loop. I don't even think this is audible in the track, but I have this vocal chop going on as well. And that's done by just taking a small little snip of the vocals and running it through a little Alter Boy and automating the formant throughout. I think it's a really cool sound that actually doesn't really get heard in the track. Speaking of little Alter Boy, let's talk about some of these ad-libs.
Don't think about.
So here's the main vocals, But underneath, I also have this track that is being tuned real hard and is being run through a little altar boy, and it's just hanging low throughout the whole chorus.
Don't think about it, feel the rhythm, baby. Just
It adds some low end into the vocals. Then there's another version of it that's actually been bounced out and it has overdrive on it. That's like the main ad-lib track throughout this whole song. For instance, at the end of the track, you hear some more of these in the final refrain of the chorus. I guess it's like a post-chorus section, you'd call it.
don't get your tongue tied in a knot, no, baby. Just feel the beat of my heart.
In that final section, you can hear me twisting that formant knob on Little Altar Boy. Creates this really cool, like sweeping through the frequencies kind of sound.
Not now, baby. Just feel the beat of my heart.
So if you listen to those vocals, you can kind of hear a bit of a saturated sound, and I think it really adds a lot to the high end of the vocal sound. I'm not sure what mic was used on the vocals, but when I add a little bit of this mid-air and high air in this fresh air plugin, which is free, it adds a little bit of that saturation and crispness, but without it being harsh. That's really nice. Overall, when it comes to working on vocals in an electronic song, I just love to mangle, stretch, pull, do everything I possibly can to vocals because even when we mangle them beyond belief, for some reason I'm still able to pick up like that human characteristic to vocals, and that's why I love using them as instruments. It's like my favorite thing to do when it comes to working on this kind of music. If you want some inspiration on how to do that to your vocals, go check out this video right here. Hey, I wanted to take a quick moment just to ask you to like this video and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. I do a lot of videos on the music process and things that are helpful to solo artists. If you're a singer and you're looking for some tips on how to record some great vocals at home, go check out my free guide, Stacks on Stacks, in the description. All right, now back to the breakdown. Awesome, so now that we went through all the vocals, let's mute those and focus on the instruments. So the name of the game with this track for me was focus and balance. So I think I achieved this by really paying attention to the vocals throughout the track. I always want that to be the main thing in the song. Everything else is kind of supporting that because at the end of the day, that's usually what people are going to remember about a song is the vocals. In this track, I didn't really want to go off on some long tangent with the instruments by creating a really bass heavy drop and all that kind of stuff. I wanted it to have texture, but I didn't want it to lose the focus. And then balance in the sense that this track emotionally isn't really like, it's not super epic. The difference between the verse to the chorus, they're not like a major change. It's just kind of a grooving sort of track. That's what I was going for here. The overall instrumentation and mix, I just want to show you two parts. I want to show you the build up to the first drop and the build up to the second drop and how those are slightly different. So here's the first one. So what's happening here? The drums and the lead synths, they're filtered out and everything's just really basic. And then also the key thing is that the bass is just playing boom, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. There's no real melody going on. It's just one note that is being syncopated. You could see that here when I open up the bass track and you can see that the bass is just one note. And then we bring in a whole melody here in the drop. So there's that first big transition. Then I want to show you going from the second verse to the second drop. So there's all these different elements here in this section to add development in the song, to show dynamics, to get an extra sense of build in the second drop. Because when we are getting to the second drop in a song, we have heard the main elements. And now that we've heard the main elements in a song, we kind of need a little bit more excitement to keep us engaged. That's what I try to do there by adding snare builds. You heard that kind of Reese bass that is opening up, and then some synth fills and a cymbal that comes in when the drop happens, all that kind of stuff. So now that I showed you that from a macro view, let's dive into some of those things more. Before we dive into any of the instruments in particular, I just have a couple things I want to show you from a general bird's eye view of the entire track. The section I'm going to focus on is that second verse to second drop transition. So this drum rack, let me rename it main drums. This is the main foundation of the track. And I played around a lot with trying to get the right sounds. I switch samples out all the time working on a track. I play around with the length of samples, the pitching of samples. That's something I really pay attention to try to get the right feeling. Sometimes you spend so long trying to work on like one kick and then you go ahead and switch that kick out and it feels like an entirely different track all of a sudden. So here in the second verse, we're about to build up into the drop. And what's happening here is there's a high pass filter that is being engaged and it is slowly moving up the scale here. And then we have a 909 snare that is building up. And then going into the drop. Got the main drums here. Kick and snare, kick and snare. Have a couple percussion elements here. Just a little ear candy. Then I also have the hats. These are also MIDI. And then second half of the drop, I add this super stretched drum fill. Just a little extra texture. Favorite thing about the drums I want to show you is this synth patch that I used as a tom. Sounds like this. Kind of has that 80s tom sound, and it starts the drop out with this, which I don't even think that was intentional. I think I misplaced that clip there, but I liked how it sounded when I played the whole drum group. Just the smallest little pew. And then it comes back later as a little fill. Let's play that in context. All right, let's break down the almighty bass group in this track. So I got a sub here. Then I have this, what I call like the lead bass. Super dry, analog kind of sound. I do modulate the sound of it throughout the track quite a bit, just to add some movement. Then these 4 other tracks, they're actually following all of the MIDI in this track. I just did that because in this track I changed around the MIDI quite a bit and I didn't want to have to copy clips all over the place. So instead I just had 4 other synths follow this MIDI of the one track. Worked for me. So if this is like the lead bass in the track, that's like the main down the center kind of bass. Then we have one that is the opposite. This one has EQ cutting out all the low end and it's completely stereo. This one, here's a real FM heavy kind of sound. And this is the final one. So all those different bass sounds are basically an attempt to have something clear and down the center and then have some extra stuff in the sides and stuff that has its low end cut out so that we can get that kind of low sound, but we're not being overloaded with bass frequencies. We have a lot of texture going on in the bass group. Leading into both drops of this song, there's a little reverse version of the bass I have, and that just helps give some movement coming into the drop. For instance, when I play the first chorus, it sounds like this. Final thing to show you in the bass group is this Reese sound. So it's just this kind of warbly preset, and it helps to build up the energy for the second drop of the song. You can hear it open up. So with all of that, let's play a little bit of the bass in context. So let's look at the pads here. This is kind of the main atmospheric bassline noise floor in this track are these pads here. And the main one sounds like this. It's like the first thing you hear in the song. And overall, all I'm doing throughout is just kind of opening it up, making it louder, making it quieter. So this is a really basic song from a melodic perspective. You can see it's just a block chord just held down on there. But I think texturally it sounds pretty cool. So building up into the second drop, I also have this swinging pad that I had in MIDI, but I bounced it out to audio. It sounded like this originally, and I added an LFO tool. So leading up into that second drop sounds like this. Then all these things are actually unused. I can go ahead and just like hide them away a little bit. The only other thing in the pads group is this pad that has its cutoff being modulated, and it sounds like this. This comes in and out throughout the track a few times, and it's just a cool little textural fill. Now let's break down the synth leads in this song. So the main synth in this song is just a little sine wave. And this preset just has its fundamental pitch brought down, and it just has some stereo effects on it and some reverb. Then I have a couple really basic synth layers on top of that. Here's a little bit of that sounds like. And then the one thing I added really late in this song was this little synth fill, because I felt the production was just the same throughout the entire track. I had to add some stuff in. That's when I went and added these little synth fills. They sound like this. I think it's a pretty cool combination. So in the left, we have like an analog style like Moog sound and a little quirky sound, an organ sound. Then for some reason in my lead synths group, I also have some things that are not lead synths. I'm sorry for confusing you, but I have some pianos and I also have some horns. Here's one of the fills I have going throughout the track. Kind of like a dub horn sound. I have this playing in the drop. Kind of has that phaser sound to it. Another version of it that's even longer. A lot of really little bits and pieces for the synth group. Then just a couple other things I want to show you. So from the first drop to the second verse, I have this synth that is slowing down. It sounds like this. And we get that by taking this synth sound and using an arpeggiator to slow the rate of the note down. That's kind of my transition effect from the first chorus to the second verse. Then I have a reverse piano into a piano note as well. And a little piano note fill. So with all of that context, let's play that section of the track again. I'm gonna skip ahead a bit. Yeah, that's the whole track. Lots of little bits and pieces, lots of fills, lots of ambience, and just try to add a lot of texture to the song. I really had a great time working on this track. I've been working on it since early June, and here we are at the end of August about to release it. I'm really happy about it, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Please go check out Beat of My Heart by Dan Mess and Murphy on all streaming platforms now. Thanks so much for checking out this breakdown today. If you're a singer and you need some production on your tracks, I'd love to talk with you. I specialize in electronic music production for solo artists at my website, onechannelproductions.com. I'm super excited to be working on some more electronic tracks. I have so many things in the works right now, and I can't wait to share it with you all. Thanks so much for checking out this breakdown today. I'll see you in the next video.